Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Flip the Script on Your Taxes. It's Margo Masri, your Heartfelt CFO, and I'm so excited to present this to you today, whether you're live or watching the replay, and talk to you about how you can flip the script on your taxes. I decided to call the presentation about this today because what I noticed was that so many people, the way they think about taxes has so much stress, fear, and anxiety. And I want to help you start to develop these little tips and tricks around it so that you can reduce that and jump in to all the great things that I've prepared today. So I'm going to teach you some strategies to save money, scale your business without working harder. Now, a little bit about me. I was inspired to start my company about 18 years ago when I had my first child because I saw the stress and fear around the accounting jargon with business owners. I even saw it for myself that I felt like it was an area that I had to jump into to be able to help the business owners overcome as well. Now, throughout time, I've helped clients increase profitability through strategies and systems that have been able to increase profit and really think about taxes in a whole nother way. My company, on top of it, has been rated top 18 the past few years, and I'm excited to share this with you as I really love what I do. If you follow me on social media, you can see how much I share content all the time about my teachings and really teaching business owners how to make this easier around every area of their life. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to take your business to the highest level. Now, what I'm telling you today, not everything may apply to you now, or you may not be ready to implement everything, but I'm going to give you a wealth of information to have at your fingertips so you have those tools. By the end of our time together, you're going to learn what tax preparation is and some key steps and pointers to help you along with planning. I broke it down a bit as I saw the feedback from all my previous webinars that I really want to give you more, especially around this time of year. You know, with COVID, I realized tax planning and tax preparation is now, it's almost like 12 months a year because people got used to the COVID extensions, people get used to extensions in general, and having this information available, I felt was so important. Stay with me till the end because I really constructed a beautiful call at the end that is specifically for people who come to my webinars, whether you're live or replay, just as long as you signed up for this specific type of consultation call. I want you to turn off all your distractions. Again, if you're live or replay, don't multitask, come and hang out with me and really try to dive in. And if you have questions, either way, however you're attending, I want you to share them with me so I can help you. Right now, a lot of you can be confused or you don't know the importance to the preparation to planning. Sometimes people do know the importance, however, they just still get frozen around this process, and I'm here to share more. Now, you may feel fear, you may feel anxiety, you may feel anger, you might feel all of the above. Now, what I want to do is to be able to take this to be reactive. Instead of being reactive, I want to help you be proactive and really see where you're coming up, the things are coming up for you, so we can help you through those. Now, you're going to say like, hey, Margo, like, why are you talking about this so much? You know, fear, anxiety, and all of these things. With coaching my one-on-one clients, you know, for over a decade, I have to tell you that working them through the fear of what they have or working through the anxiety and the anger alone has been half the battle, because we have to get out of our own way to walk into the world of confidence, being relaxed and at peace around the area. And I tell you, when I worked this through for myself and I saw how it was working with clients, it's really life-changing. So you're thinking about this and you're like, how is this possible? Like, you know, I've been living like this my entire life. It's just not going to change. I've really took the time in this presentation to add some mindset shifts in here so that you can start to see how a little bit of different actions and thoughts each time can really shift how we see things. Now, The biggest thing is always, I want to make more money, spend more time with family. I want to run a marathon. People make these goals, but they don't realize all the steps that are involved. Now, the end results are great. However, to achieve them, there's a lot of micro steps that we need to have in order to get there. Now, you have to change your mindset on how you view them. If you keep doing the same thing, you're not going to be achieving those goals. If you do something different, that's when we can achieve those goals. Now, for me, when I'm in that type of area, I like to go in nature, exactly like you see in my picture. Put my hair up in a bun, get next to the water, and then really just get intimate with the process of what's happening, whether it's my clients, for myself, for my business, my children, whatever is going on. Now, in this presentation, we're going to start with preparation. I'm going to share you some strategies. Now, there's loads and loads in each of the areas. So each time I try to switch it up depending on what people are looking for. After the preparation, we're going to go into planning. I'm going to share some strategies. And then I'm going to walk you through the difference of what they both are to realize how they each complement, but yet they are different. And then at the end, if you want to have a call, work with me and some Q&A. Now, let's jump into preparation, as otherwise some people call this as the famous word, bookkeeping. Now, I'm going to start off this section by saying a quote. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If we think taxes and money are hard and strenuous and all, it's always going to be that way. But if we look at taxes as something as just outside of us and just something that we have to do, you don't realize the thoughts that start to simmer around them. So think about this quote and think how you can apply this in business and life to see how you can change the way things look. Now, the goal for taxes is just common. You want to save money, you want to make less time, and you don't want to have stress around it. However, the mindset shift around this is, why not just act on a way of being compliant? We look at the end result of, I don't want to pay. But if we look at from the beginning of being compliant, it's a whole different ballgame. So the question is how do you make a change? You want to understand the difference of what I'm talking about, the preparation and the planning, but also what's expected of you. So if there's a deadline, let's say the famous one in our personal life, April 15th, what's expected of you? We know we need to file a return, but we don't know all the onset things that come. Throughout the years, someone's taught you, or you've grabbed it at coffee with a friend, or you've grabbed it from Google, but really how this process pertains to you and really critiques to you is a whole different game. Now, when you implement them throughout the year, preparing for taxes is nothing. For me, I have someone who does mine, and yes, somebody else does mine. And I just share the folders that pertain to what he needs, because each week and each month I'm doing it. I don't like separate jobs. I don't like separate tasks, and I don't like things that overwhelm me. So when it comes to that, I like to break it down. And that's exactly what I share with my clients and my followings and all of you who are around for this webinar. So depending on where you live is when the forms are available, right? It could be available throughout the beginning of the year. And lots of times, even to get yourself familiar with them, you can bring up on Google older ones so that you can see really what the lines are. Now, the common thing is with these forms is that people really just take from last year to the next year, and they really just try to scribble it, whether it's on a napkin or Excel, but they don't realize just doing it that way is not an exact or a real replica of what's actually happening by them. They're thinking that the tax preparer is not really in their best interest, but there's a lot of components to that. Now, let's jump into some strategies when it comes to preparation. And as always, I like to start with like a little bit of a quote. Our past is our building blocks, which create the steps to push forward. Now, people usually get upset at that first part of our past is our building blocks, because they just get upset. Like if they failed, or they expected a result, or they got attached to a solution that they thought was going to happen and it busted. But really, when it busts, it creates the steps to push forward. That's our clues. Those are our information. So again, it's all those mindset shifts on how we think about it. So let's jump in. I specifically wanted to talk about today accounts payable and going paperless. The theme these past 30 days since last month's webinar from everybody was worrying about tax deductions. If I tell you, everything is, my accountant missed this, he missed this, he missed this. And what do I ask people is, what's your process for accounts payable? So let's dive in. The money your business owes suppliers, contractors, and vendors. So now in your business, and you can take these concepts in your personal life too, because to a degree, business and personal have a relevance here. But for this, we're going to just talk about business. Suppliers, contractors. Let's say if you have people who you need to pay for items, contractors, people who you outsource things to, vendors, people who maybe that you are using for different parts of services. Now, your credit card bill, actual payroll, everything and everything. How it's categorized is a separate story, but accounts payable, just think about it outside of like the concrete book definition of money that you owe or money that you agreed to pay somebody. Now, people get triggered when I say money that they owe because they're like, I don't owe any money, I don't have debt. Or they're like, oh my God, I have a lot of debt, depending on where you're at in that journey. However, for the sake of learning the skill, stay with me and think about accounts payable as just money that you agreed to pay out. At home, you agreed to all your utilities. In business, you're agreeing to some type of vendors or some type of team if you rent or if you're working from home, any of those types of things. Bottom line is you agree. Bills can happen, however, that are surprise, but it's everything. Now, let's tag team this with going paperless. Going paperless is just so important. The common thing, if you follow me on social media, I posted a video about this today, really about categorizing income, but I implemented the going paperless part, where if you have your stuff organized and easy to find, it's not a problem. You don't know when your accountant at the year end, when he's filing the taxes, if they ask for papers, if you have it organized in folders as they come or as your mail comes, that you scan it into a folder and just label it 2021, 2020, 2022, whatever it is. And just in the area that it is, it just becomes something simple to share. Now, when you have these receipts organized also, if you need to find something, it's not a struggle. It's something really readily available for you. Now, with going paperless, I do everything on Google Drive. I used to have everything on Dropbox, and then there was like an issue one time where where somebody came in and it was all sorts of like theft and all sorts of crazy things. However, it's really whatever works for you. So these two strategies, no matter what industry you are, no matter what area in your life, going paperless and accounts payable are just so important. Now, I personally created 9 fundamentals when it comes to the preparation side. And I forgot last month what I spoke about, but in any event, these two I thought for this time of year was really super important. Now, however you decide to go paperless, it's scanning the stuff into your system. It's taking off of Dropbox. It's taking off of your bank portal, like of Chase. It's taking off of ADP. It's taking the stuff off of it and putting it on your end. So many times with clients, they change their payroll providers. And then what happens? They don't have access to the information anymore because it shuts down, their relationships close, and they don't realize that they can't take the information. That portal is only available when you're paying for the service. So again, accounts payable, going paperless, it is just 2 key things to the process in terms of preparation. Now, I broke down accounts payable, and depending on where you are, this may seem hard, this may seem easy. So wherever you're at in the process, make notes for that, because I'm going to give you some steps to talk about, and you may be totally not even in the realm, but at least if you take one action towards the steps, it really is bringing you closer to staying in that strategy and in that system for yourself. So the first thing is to process invoices immediately in the system that you're using. For me, I use QuickBooks. I'm a huge fan of it. There's a ton of programs out there that can align with you, depending on what field that you have. Real estate fields, they have very specific ones. However, I find with all of my real estate clients, I find that I'm still using QuickBooks for certain things in addition to their systems that are specifically for their, their management systems as well. Once you process them, they're in your system. You get a report to look at, and then you have everything laid out. The next part is that you want to keep detailed records. With detailed records, it's any information that's necessary that you need. Date due, person you spoke to, last payment, and all of those things. Now, some of these things are going to be more manual if you don't have a system like QuickBooks, but regardless, just having it is really what's key to really keep this as your steps. And then as it works for you, you can add things as it works for you. The last thing is centralize your data in a single system to automate your payment process. Now, for me, I pay everything with online banking. I recently, about 6 months ago, I changed from Chase to TD. And changing from Chase to TD, I'll tell you, it's like a world of a difference. Chase, like, things were a lot easier in a lot of ways than TD. However, with TD, they're like a little bit old fashioned, but yet I still appreciate it on that side. So depending on your bank is really what you want to do. For instance, with TD, when you do an online payment, the money doesn't come out until it reaches the vendor. With Chase, they take the money out right away to cover the check. So you're going to want to know how your banks work in terms of those, which is called your bank balance versus your book balance, because the book balance will be what payments that you generated, and the book balance is something may not have hit the bank yet. So the 3 parts to accounts payable: process invoices immediately, keep detailed records, and centralize your data. Now, even with saying process them immediately, I'll tell you, for me, I look through my mail a few times a week because it's just easier for me to do it in micro steps. And depending on your level and your side, you might do it once a week. But much more than that, it becomes where you're elongating the process and it becomes much harder. So going paperless, moving to an electronic system, I cannot talk about this part enough because, again, I remember during COVID, people were really just like gravitating towards running to the office, and they were afraid because of the mask and all these things to get their mail. And so many clients, I helped them move to paperless so that getting to the office wasn't a struggle. And then learning to open up those emails, even once you go paperless, was a whole stretch in itself. It reduces errors and eliminates document storage too. Now, whether you're in an apartment, a house, office, all of these things, or whether you're in transit, it's always with you. So I'll tell you, like yesterday, I worked remotely, not from my regular station, and I had everything accessed with me. It wasn't a problem. I really just needed Wi-Fi, my laptop, a notebook that I used and things, and I was really able to work at a remote location. The next part to this is that you're going to be able to log expenses, receipts, payroll, and all of those sorts of things when you go there. I am a huge fan of folders by area so that it becomes easy when you want to open things. The last part to this is that you typically can access them from any computer. So again, like yesterday, I was at a remote location, something ended up coming up. I didn't have to put off answering it. I had the information with me that I was able to just get it done and click it off my list. Now, sometimes when people have access to this information, it can do the opposite. However, in the context of this webinar, what we're talking about today in terms of tax preparation and planning, it's generally the easiest when you have access so that you really can gather your items properly. So the next part to the planning is what I'm so excited to share because people don't plan. They realize it after, and then they wonder why things are not the way it should be for them. And again, I like to start each area with a saying, and a goal without a plan is just a wish. We all think that we want things. We wake up and this sounds good, that sounds good, best-selling author, and all of those things. But we need a plan. So just like you plan possibly what you're going to wear or go to sleep and all of these day-to-day items, it's how we have to plan for taxes. Really, I'm working on trying to break it down that you see how it relates to things to make it easier. So the goal for taxes, save as much money as possible, of course, and not to let tax time fill you with stress and anxiety. Now, this is where I want to just talk for a minute, breaking that down in terms of the stress and anxiety, because what happens is that's the area to look at. That's the area to talk to people about, and really to get the consultation on, because to see why it's there for you. To a degree now, I can tell you strategies, preparation, and items and tips and tricks. But when it comes to things that are really triggering you or really bringing up an alarm, it's important to talk to somebody. Now, just yesterday, I spoke with a couple. They haven't filed taxes since 2009. I was shocked. They said that there was no letters. They said that there was no like levies and all of these things. And I just started to get to know the couple. And I was like, I love them as a couple. And I saw what was happening in their life, that like they just drifted off into life. However, now they're at this part where they need to like relive the past because they have to file taxes. Now, this is what happens when you run behind. You have to relive the past, which alone makes people fail in this process, because reliving it, you get upset and then you miss out on the present time. Now, how to make a change for this? It's simple. We want to monitor expenses, deductions, estimated taxes, and bills throughout the year. So an instructor of mine that I follow, she was telling me, I just thought this story was so profound. She said to me, Margo, actually, yeah, we had this in the conversation, but she also shared it in her story. She was switching from coffee to matcha. And she was saying how, she was away and she noticed all this sort of anxiety about her when she was away. And she's like, I don't want to listen to the cries of my life. I want to listen to the dreams and the goals and not just act to respond. And that anxiety is the cries. So when you have to do things that respond around the cries, it's moving you further and further and deeper away from what your dreams and goals are. So being able to do this throughout the year and implementing this is all steps to make you stronger. So planning addresses things like expenses, making sure you get the expense deduction, retirement plans, which one's best for you, getting you onto a plan. I was just listening to the news this morning, and it was saying how the most common thing that people regret is not starting retirement sooner. And back to the couple who I was talking to yesterday, they don't have a plan. They had each other's love. That's what they said, which I thought was adorable. However, it's not going to pay the bills of the necessities of those goals and dreams. Now, investments determine how they might affect the long-term and the short-term goals, but also your tax filings, depending on what you're doing. So these are the things of planning. Now, I tell you with planning to look ahead, because when we look ahead, we realize how much more we're really doing and how much more planning is important. So I ask this question because I realize with my clients, when I coach them, how many times do you check your finances? I have this client, he wakes up at like 5 a.m. and he gets triggered around his bank balance. Now, he does things to push it. And we talk about cash flow all the time, where I try to teach him new things. However, it's always up to the client to implement and to dominate those, really to take it on. However, when he checks his balance, he just gets like floored. Like today's March 1st, right? When I'm doing this webinar, some payments might not go through, some payments might go through, some, all of these problems that exist. Payments might bounce. There's so many different factors that can happen. So if you find yourself triggered around checking your finances 1,000 times, you want to dip into that. And these are all things to think about. So let's jump into some strategies. And again, I'm going to start with this quote. If you have to choose, be the one who does things instead of the one who is seen do things. When you're doing things, it's just such a different feeling. And I hope I've, shared a lot of different things that you can be in that position as well. So the first one I always talk about is the entity structure and which one makes the right sense for you. Now, LLC offers businesses and owners a degree of protection from their personal liability. Now, a common thing in the real estate industry, I'm just going to say it, is that they all just own the properties personally. They just do. I have a client now, he has, I think it's like 14 entities, and they're all operated from the personal bank account. It's a disaster. However, he's making a lot of money, but he's getting killed in taxes because it's all operated from one bank account. He's getting engaged, so his fiance, the engagement ring, all of these things in that big stew. You won't be at risk if you alone just have that first entity level of the LLC. Let's take this one step further and choose, why should you choose an LLC? You have limited liability, you don't have double taxation, and it's a flexible structure. It's a flexible structure in the sense of like that protection amongst like a million other things. So let's talk about the S. The S is my favorite one, is because you share many of the same properties. However, you don't have double taxation at the shareholder level. I want to explain that again. At the shareholder level, you don't have double taxation. So as a business owner, if you're taking a W-2 salary and you're able to do that from an S-Corp, but not from an LLC. Now, why should you choose an S-Corp? I kind of gave it away before the slide, was that you have the single layer of protection and the owner's personal assets are safe and from financial difficulties. Now, we don't know. I mean, life isn't linear. You know, during COVID, we all experienced all these different things, and you want to see really through that lens of really what's best for you. Now, there's other entities. I usually just talk about these two. It's the most common what people ask. However, if you are interested in C and the other ones, I do have a whole presentation on that. But for today, I chose these two. Now, the question is with this is sometimes people don't know what they qualify for. So what happens is that people have these big dreams and then they open up the S-Corp. Or you have the opposite person, they have the LLC, and then they're turning like a hobby into a pipe dream, and they don't realize how it escalates because they're not looking at it, and they're sitting in an LLC for like forever. It's not the worst thing, but it doesn't fit what they're doing. So you want to be proactive. Do you qualify to become an S-Corp? Doing so means you can pay yourself a salary, company earnings after the salary is treated, unearned income, not subject to just self. You have employment taxes, but with both of them, you really have one level, which is really the most important on that end to avoid double taxation. Now, I added this in specific. I call this the bonus content outside of the preparation and the planning, because I find that this complements what we're talking about, the entity structure. Simply just knowing what the difference is between an independent contractor and an employee. Now, independent contractor is really, there's all sorts of versions for it. The simplest definition to this is that no taxes are being taken out of the money that you make. So how clients pay me, I'm an independent contractor. Okay, so let's think about that. Margo Masri is an independent contractor. She's your accountant and you pay me. So I'm an independent contractor. At the end of the year, I get a form called a 1099 from the people who I work with in order to report that on my taxes. Now, there's a famous question around the 1099s. Do I have to? All of those different things. That alone is a huge presentation, but I just wanted to touch on this, how it applies to the entities, to just understand that you don't, at that level of how you're getting paid, there's no taxes being taken out. So in your business, it's just being deposited, income on top of income. So you have to set up a system after that level to know about how much taxes you're going to pay. Now let's talk about a W-2 employee. I'm an employee of my company because I get paid a W-2, but how people pay me is an independent contractor status that there are no taxes. So W-2 employee, they are typically more invested in the business and they are eligible for benefits and all of those types of things. So it's really important, the distinction of all the different areas, to know where you're at to plan for this, because there's different layers. So now let's in review this. You have your entity, let's just say for an LLC, and now your clients are paying you from an independent contractor status, or we talked about accounts payable as a vendor of theirs, and no taxes are being taken out. It doesn't matter if there's profit. It doesn't matter if you have like this internal agreement, whatever it is. If it's over $600, you need to report it. Now, I'm an employee of my company because how I take my salary, it makes sense for me on the W-2 level, and I have the S-Corp. Now, a lot of you may start to feel like this is confusing, so I hope that you see how I broke it down and trying to bring it together. Now, I'm going to throw one thing in there as well, is that it has to be worth it for you to take the W-2 at the entity level versus just taking draws. When you just take draws, when you just take money from your business, there's no taxes there. So what happens is on your personal side, that's where the taxes are being paid. So you could be overpaying on your personal, even though it didn't pay through the business. So it's very important in your business to really understand these different levels so that you can see how to save the most money possible. This concept alone will save you 25% between the strategy of knowing the contractor and the entity and being able to implement this for you. Now, you want to know the difference between preparation and planning, right? So let's dive into that. I skipped a slide. Like anything, this is from Eleanor Roosevelt. This wasn't mine. If life were predictable, it would seize life and be without flavor. Like I remember when I started my business years ago, I would just get upset around things that would happen. But really, when things happen, that's the flavor that it creates. So tax preparation and planning are two separate components that complement each other. And at the end, when I brought it together with that bonus content, I hope you saw that. So tax planning examines and tweaks areas that might be overlooked during bare bones of tax preparation. It does take time and requires expert help, but can have great benefits in the long run for your personal and business finances. So now, things that you overlooked in the bare bones of the preparation, the planning gives you almost like the 100-foot view. So before I jump into the obvious question, this reminds me of a client that I'm working with. He was fixing his whole basement for his business, and he didn't deduct it. He just happened to tell it to me in a casual conversation. And I'm like, hold on, we need a tax plan here. And he's like, what happened? What's going on? And when he explained it to him, it was like a whole different view, because money that he was already spending, he was able to deduct it, that he was really just leaving it on the side. He's like, I just need a place because my basement is like a dungeon. It's like the way he thought about it. It was just, I think it was like $35,000 that we, like just a blink of an eye, that the whole process pays for itself. So the obvious question is why are you here? You're a business owner who doesn't know their numbers and you are ready to take it on. You're a business owner who has tried other systems, but you need to know certain things for yourself. You use payment processing systems, but you're looking for more. My favorite is number 3, that people look for like ADP to do the job, or they look for their credit card processor to do the job. However, why do I say it's my favorite? Because it goes into why you need the system of Paperless to take your system with you, if you realize the connection of why these things are harder for you. Now, you can either stay confused or you can follow a proven roadmap. And a lot of you can even just take on what I've shared today and really be in a whole nother place. So my offer is really, it's a free savings strategy call. I crafted this call specifically for people who attend my webinars and sign up only. We're going to go over strategies together that will help your business save on taxes and eliminate stress and anxiety around tax time. Now, if we just took the information today to see how it does, alone, you're going to see how the process pays for itself. There's really no strings to this. It's just something I want to offer with sharing this process that I've created over the years. So why am I doing this? I don't normally do these things. I appreciate you attending the webinar, and I want you to truly understand how much your business can save. Doing what you're already doing and not doing more. It's working smarter, not harder. And depending on the needs of your company, we will discuss current savings and entity optimizations as well. Sometimes alone, just the savings without the entity optimizations, you realize how much is in this process. So these are the steps for the phone call. You can either do it through just emailing me when is good for you. It's a 45-minute to an hour phone call. And then once we book that time, I'm going to give you a little bit of a questionnaire to get the most of the time. After that, we're going to have a call to discuss. It's between entity structure and tax savings. You're currently basically, we want to see what you're currently doing to see what you're missing, all the leaky holes in your system. You'll walk away from the call knowing exactly what strategies to implement and how much money your business will save. You don't just take my word for it, though. I'm going to share, I keep this one in specific because this client that I worked for, I remember when she was in her basement. Like, I remember when like she was pregnant with her first, and like now she's in magazines and different things. And like, you know, it's just amazing to see how numbers and systems help clients in so many different ways. So taking the first step towards improving how you handle taxes is really the solution that's in front of you. Let me supply the roadmap together. We'll help you move from, you know, being a reactive every April to being proactive and in control of your finances. We're in this together. I want you to see that. And as always, if there was something today that was challenging or things, you know, I want you to let me know. And I'm just going to go back to the step of the phone call and really stress the time. You know, for me, I usually charge for this type of phone call, but because I know how hard it is for people to take their time out from work and different things, family, where I've crafted this specific call. It's specific things that I do with my clients that I've realized when we do it from the onset of things, you realize how much more the process can be easier to save money. And my favorite is to be compliant. It's really just to make your life easier in the whole nother way and take that stress out. People who work with me at this time of year, they realize that you can get 2021 and you're accomplishing 2022. So you really get two for the price of one, but just for the time alone. And this is the steps of the process. You can email me. All of you have access to me in DM as well. However, email is always easier because sometimes I feel like my DMs are like out of control. Sometimes like with all the amazing messages, like I always get nervous if I miss one. You know, but whatever works for you. And I hope you take me up on this. And just so you know a little bit as well, the first Tuesday of every month, I'm going to teach a webinar. So if there's a topic that you're interested in, please let me know. People have told me before. That's kind of why I added some of the content today. And every Thursday in LinkedIn at 9 a.m. is our LinkedIn newsletter. And it just becomes more and more packed with information. They just come out better and better each week. And then everyone's feedback has been like just so helpful. So this is the steps for the call. If anything, you know, questions, let me know. And there's always time for Q&A if anybody has any questions or, you know, just wants to say a quick hello. Thank you all for coming. I'm so grateful. You have no idea. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Talk soon.